Welcome back to the shop. Thank you so much for stopping back by this week. This week is a much needed how-to video. Dog bones, torque adapters. How do you set them? Which way do you turn them? What's the calculations and formulas and space technology to get it right? Well, in this video, we're going to talk all about it. We're going to start at the very basic, simple things and work all the way up to how do we adjust for these extensions, these dog bones, these adapters. And in the last video where we did the breather assembly for a 2015 Ultra Classic Low, in the comments of those, I got a lot of questions about that. So let's go over that and discuss it because you are going to need dog bones, torque adapters working on motorcycles, especially up at the top of the head. Even with the tank off, you're going to find these are the only things that are going to get in there where you need. And even the Harley manual, service manual, tells you to pick you up one of those and even gives you the part number that you might need for it. So you are going to need these. There will be a time you have to have them if you're going to wrench on your own bike. So let's do it right and let's explain it. Welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. Now, to understand this in a relatable way, I like to start with the simple things. That's just how my mind works. You might be a little bit more advanced than me on this, but in the breather rocker cover for the 2015, it of course gives you the breather assembly screw specs for the torque value. It even says you're going to need a dog bone, a torque adapter. It even gives you a snap-on part number. Now, I have one here. It is a snap-on, but it does not have the same part number, but it is for the one that I need. I believe this is a 3/8, and then I've got this one that's a Matco 7/16, and this is a snap-on 3/8. Now on the snap-on, I don't know if you can see it in the light or not, but it does say it's a 2-inch extension. Now if you did not know it, like on this Matco, it does not have any markings for how long it is. So you'll want to take a tape measure and you will want to measure from the center here to the center here. Now I know that these are 2 inches. And if I line it up with the other one, they line up exactly the same. And so I know this is a 2-inch one as well, but you will need to measure these. Another thing you will need to measure is your torque wrench. So you will actually flip it over. You will measure from the center. Most have little buttons there that release the sockets. So you will measure from the center here, straight down the shaft and to the middle of where you grab. Okay, about right there. Now for my 3/8 inch, this is 13 inch. For my 1/4 inch torque, this is shorter, as you can see. This is a 12 inch from here, the center, to here, the middle. That's important. You'll need that calculation as well. So you're going to need 3 things to find out what you need to set the dog bone torque at. The 3 things you're going to need is the length of your dog bone, the length of your torque wrench, and you're going to need to know the setting, the values. Now on the breather assembly screws, it's 120 inch-pounds to 156 inch-pounds. Now you say, well, how come some torque specs are shorter together, so say 15 to 18 foot-pounds, where this is wider? Okay, so like right here, our rocker cover screws that go up here, the bolts up here, they're 15 to 18 foot-pounds, but the breather assembly screws have a larger range of torque than the foot-pounds do. You say, well, why is that? Well, understand what torque specs are for. Torque specs are for 2 reasons. Number 1, so that you do not put on a screw or a bolt too loose, so that whatever you're mating it to, especially if there's a gasket in between the two surfaces, you want to make sure that you've got it torqued down enough so that that bolt or screw will not get loose over vibration and time and back out, thus the gasket failing. If you use Loctite or not, it doesn't matter. They give you the torque specs for that reason. Now, the second reason for a torque spec is so that you don't go over the spec, over tighten the bolt or screw, and either break it off in whatever you're tightening it to, or warp something that you're bolting down. Say it's a cover here. These are bad to get warped, and if they do get warped, you'll have to replace them. These actually have certain undoing sequences and tightening sequences as well as torques. So on parts that required, it's very important. So that's why you see a range for those two reasons. Now I will say this, like this breather assembly screw torque value, 120 to 156. If you are somewhere inside this range, you are good. What I mean by that, say this bolt right here, which that's not the value, the values are actually these two right here. But say on the rocker cover screws that are 15 to 18 foot-pounds, these 6, you'll have these over here on the right side of the bike that are longer, these over here on the left side that are shorter. The length of the bolts does not matter, they're the same torque. Say I get this one at 15, and say I get this one at 18, doesn't matter. Say I get that one at 17 and this one at 16, doesn't matter. As long as all of your bolts are within that torque spec, you are good. So they don't have to be precise. So say I'm tightening a bolt with my digital torque wrenches here from AC Delco that I love. Saved up some nickels and pennies for that, but man, they've been worth it. These even do the angles. But anywho's in house, say I turn it and I kind of turn it a little bit more. Well, this will tell me, and it might say 15.3. I do the other one and I forget my mistake and I turn it even more and it's 16 foot-pounds. That's fine. You don't have to loosen anything and redo anything. If you're within those specs, you are good. Now let's talk about torque wrenches. There are clicky-clacky torque wrenches. That's what I used to have before these. There are these digital torque wrenches. Oh, don't have the batteries in this. I got the batteries in this. That are, do I or don't? No, I don't. Okay, I keep my batteries out. But anyway, these will do angles as well, which is handy, especially with head bolts on motorcycles and Harleys. You have to go a 90 degree more after a torque. So that comes in very handy. But also some torque wrenches will give you an option and an addition to add a dog bone torque adapter to it. And then you just put in how long it is, and then it does all the mathematicals for you. If you're going to get a torque wrench where you're using a lot of dog bones and even crow's foot as well, then it might be a good option to upgrade to one that you can actually put in the calculation for that extension. Now, speaking of extensions, say I'm in an area, which you usually don't find on a motorcycle, but I have to use one of these. So an actual extension. Well, if you'll notice, the length from the handle, middle of the handle, to the end here has stayed the same. So you do not have to calculate anything using these. The only thing you have to be worried about is to make sure these are rated for whatever torque you're torquing. Sometimes these will twist on you, they'll break, they'll snap off and round off in here. They could destroy your socket or even the end up here on your torque wrench. So you want to be careful of that. But these do not get any type of special calculation. If I'm torquing the rocker cover screws to 16 foot-pounds and I have to use this, I will still do 16 foot-pounds. So let's walk through the formula for these. So I've just got a notepad here and a pen, and I will give you the formula that I like to use that to me is just easier to use. You'll find if you Google it, 2 or 3 different formulas you can put in. This is just what's always been easiest for me. Now today we have computers and bootbot machines, and I'm going to show you a website you can go to and just type in your numbers, which is simple. The length of the wrench you're using, the length of the dog bone adapter, and the torque spec that you're setting to, and then it'll spit out what you're supposed to adjust the wrench for with the added extension. But before computers, what did a feller do? Maybe you're out in the field and you ain't got a pocket phone computer, or you ain't got a laptop nearby. So here is the formula that I like. To me, my mind just works with that formula. So let's write down some simple terms of the formula. There's 4 that we have to calculate. 3 we know, 1 we got to find out. What do we know? We know the torque spec. We know the length of our adapter. We know the length of the wrench. We got to find out, what do I need to set this to if this is extended all the way out? That's what we're finding out. So let's write down some simple terms. So we have a TA. That's what it's often called, and what that means is, what is the torque applied? Meaning, when I put this on my adapter and I am all the way extended out straight, I have added 2 inches onto my wrench. So I know what the torque is here because I can set it here. But what is the torque that's going to come out here? Now I don't want to go over 156, so I want to shoot for 156. But if I want 156 here, what's going to be my setting down here? So this is torque applied at the end of my dog bone. An easy way to remember that, if you ever grew up around old gospel songs, there's an old song called Glory to His Name. And if you look at these bolts, here at the bolt was the torque applied. Glory to His... Okay, enough of that. All right, then you have one that is called an LA, and that just means the length of the wrench. So the length of the wrench is from the center here to the middle of the handle here. That's the length of the wrench. The other setting is an LP, and that's just called the length of the dog bone or the adapter. Why is it called LP and why is that called LA? I don't know. That's just what they've always called it. And then we have a TW, and that is the wrench. How do you spell wrench? Wrench setting. So this is what I want to find out. What, with all these in here, what do I need to set this to get my 156, or to not go over that? That's what I want to find out, is what I set this to. Here is the simple formula. You'll take your torque applied, TA, and I want to times that by the length of the wrench, LA, but I want to divide that length of the wrench by my length of the dog bone, LP, plus my length of the wrench, plus LA. And that will give us what we need to set our torque wrench to, the TW. I do it this way. Some people don't, because if you're doing equations, you would kind of, well, let's mark out the L and the LA up here and LA down there. You're left with the P. You can't do that. So what you've got to do is kind of put quotations around this so that you know to add the LP and the LA before you start doing your divisions. Simple. Now I'll set this over here and let's put in these numbers. Our TA, our torque applied, we don't want to exceed 156. And then we're going to times that. We're just putting numbers into this equation. We're going to times that by LA, the length of the wrench, is 13. So we'll do that. And I want to divide that. The LP, the length of the dog bone, is 2 inches. Plus the LA, the length of the wrench again, is 13. And that gives us what we need to set our torque at. So it's a very simple equation here when you get to this point. So 2 plus 13 is 15 over under 13, 156. That will give us our torque. Calculator out here. And 13 divided by 15 gives us that number. Now you could write this number down, but I just leave it in here because I want to calculate it here. So once I have this 0.86666 number, all I got to do is times it by 156. So I will times this now by 156. And that gives us what we need to set our torque wrench to. So then, at this point, our torque wrench setting needs to go down to 135.2. If I set my torque wrench down to 135.2, and I put my adapter on, my 2-inch adapter, and I have it all the way out here, I'm actually getting at the end of this 156 inch-pounds. Not what I've got it set to at 135. Now, like I said, there are some wrenches that will do this for you. I don't have that, but that's how you will set it. So that is the formula that I use. That's quite simple to do. Now, I know by doing it, all of my dog bones are 2 inches. Most of my crow's foots are 2 inches. Most of these you're going to find are just like this. They're 2-inch extensions. Now, let's talk about angles, because that's going to monkey with our equation. And here's how it'll do it. So let me move all this. Let's snap the adapter on. Now, some people will tell you that if you go like this at a 90-degree angle, that there is no difference in length from here to here as from here going down if you were to have a wrench like that. Therefore, there's nothing you need to add or subtract from your setting. However, I find that not to be true. Here's why. This right here, I don't know how the angle looks on the camera, but to my eyeballs, it looks pretty straight. But I want you to look at this. Let's get it around here. Look at that play. You see that play? Now, when you're talking about angles, that's a lot of degrees. You might not think it's much just looking at it, a little wiggle, but that's probably about 3 degrees of room, maybe even 4 or 5. So just keep that in mind. Now, of course, as you decrease the length from here to your handle, the value is going to go down. So say I'm down here. Now, I am not torquing at 156, and I'm not even torquing at what I've got it set to at 135.2, because I'm 2 inches closer to the handle. So I have basically shortened this by 2 inches, which is going to decrease the value of my torque. Now, is there ever a situation where you would use one like that? I've never run into one. There might be, though, like that. You never know. You'll have to take that into consideration as well. But the calculation you will put in is for this to be straight out. So when a lot of people see me use this straight out, they say, oh, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. Well, there's a reason for that. I've calculated for that. Not only that, that is why you see me always go on the low side of the torque. Because get this, we were to set our torque angle, remember, our torque value at 135. Well, guess what? Even without this, at 135, I'm within spec. Then when I add this, even at its longest, I'm still within spec. So on my breather assembly screws, since I know I'm going to be using a 2-inch torque adapter on some up here on some of these, then I'm going to go on the low side. Then I know even if I over tighten a little, I'm still within spec of the high side. So that's why you see some of my videos where, wait a minute, man, it don't look like you're resetting this thing and adding in the values. That's because I've already done it in my head on the low side. You don't have to do it this way. And actually what I find is that if you do it this way, and especially without a calculator, you'll get a different reading. But let me just show you, if we were to do this without a computer, without a calculator, we'll put our values back in. 156 is what I'm aiming for. I don't want to go over that. 13 is my length of the wrench. 2 is the length of my adapter plus the length of my wrench. Gives me the torque setting that I want to put in to my torque wrench. I'll come down here and do the 156 times 13 over 15 equals TW. I'll come down here and do the 156 and then 13 divided by 15. If I did that on the calculator, 13 divided by 15, and I just took the 2 decimals, 0.086 gives me my TW. What you're going to see is a different number than this because the calculator figures in all these little decimals all the way out. If we don't figure that in, then we've got 156 times 0.86 equals, now look, my number is different. It's now not a 135.2, it's a 134.1. Now, if you're doing covers and outside motor work like that, not a big deal. If you want to be precise internal motor parts, then I would do it with the calculator and leave all those decimals in that it gives you here, because that will give you a different calculation, 135.2. If I do it just by my formula, then I get a different reading. So, just wanted you to know that. So I say all that to say this. So if I do my calculations and I don't want to go over 156 and I'm at the very top, I know that no matter what angle I'm at, it is not going to exceed 156. Because there are times, especially on these rocker tops, right back here in the on the left rear, you're going to have to go in at about probably like that, maybe like that, just to get in there in these little slots here to turn a little at a time. You're not going to be able in some situations to go straight, and you're not going to be able especially to go at the right angle. So that's why I set the highest value of the torque spec at the very top. So I know no matter where I turn on this, as long as I'm in the northern hemisphere here, I'm good. Now, I might do one that's 156. I might do one that's 132. But I'm good either way. And now, if you've noticed, I'm not at the low side at 120. I'm at 132.5 all the way up to 156. So it's a tighter spec. Now, there might be some instances where the torque spec is such a close range that you are going to need to calculate. You just can't assume. So let's try this. Let's try these rocker cover screws here. The torque on this is 18 foot-pounds. We'll times that by the length of the wrench, which is 13, divided by the torque adapter, which is 2 inches, and the length of the wrench. So what do we need to set this to if I don't want to go over 18 foot-pounds? So we can do that calculation pretty quick. I will grab the calculator because 13 divided by 15 gives me that same number again. And then I want to times that by 18, 15.6. So then 15.6 is what I need to set my wrench to. And look again, we're still within these specs. Even at a tight spec within 3 foot-pounds, we're still good. So if I'm using it without an adapter and I got it set to 15.6, I'm good. If I use it with the adapter all the way out, I'm still good. I'm at 18 at the most. So that's just easier for me, especially going around boats that might need these and then the other side doesn't need them. It's just easier than stopping with every bolt, especially if you have to do it in steps and you tighten a little at a time. It's important. It's a lot quicker for me to just set it this once and know I'm within spec. I hope that made sense to you. But if you've got a pocket computer, there is an easier way. So let's go over to the computer and look and see what that easy way is. Now understand this. My torque spec for the rocker cover screws is 15 to 18 foot-pounds. Well, say I wanted to go, get a little wild and set this at 17. Well, understand, if I set this at 17 and I reverse my values, it's going to be more than 18. So when I am using this, and it is all the way out, if I've got this set at 17, this is going to be closer to, 19.5, 20, and I will break something. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that your torque value is within these ranges without the dog bone and with the dog bone if you're going to use this without setting it 20 million times while you're changing things around. And another good thing is you don't have to worry about the angle because you're covered. It don't have to be straight out. It don't have to be like that all the time. It don't have to be at a 90 degree all the time. And even at a 90 degree, remember, it's not going to be actual 90 degree. You're going to have some degrees you're going to have to deal with anyway. So let's go over to the computer and I'll show you a site you can go to that's free and you can put in the calculations on your own. So over here at the computer, let's see if I can take the glare out a little bit for you. If you just type in Google search bar, torque wrench adapter calculator, you'll get several, and I've went through several of them, but there's some things I don't like about them. And so I just want to show you. The first one that comes up is this Belknap. It's got the diagram here that shows you where to take your measurements. And it's about the same as my formula, just a little bit. I mean, you get the same results. It's just laid out in formula-wise a little different. They use the torque applied, the TAES, the length of the adapter center to center. They call it A instead of LP. And then the length of the torque wrench, they call it L, and I call it LA, or I've seen it always done as LA. And then the TW is a torque wrench dial reading, which you would set. So on this, you would just put in the extension length, that's a 2. The wrench length, that's a 13. And then the actual torque, if I wanted to go to a 156, then as you can see, it automatically converts it to a 135. That's okay, but I'll show you an even better one. That was Van F. Belknap Company. They've got a Ford service content that pulled up.com. And if I click that, it's got the same, although it does show a crow's foot on the torque wrench. But again, measuring at the middle of the wrench where you grab of the handle, that's your A up to here. And then your B is here. So enter fastener torque spec from the workshop manual. So it was 156 was what we were shooting for in inch pounds. The length of the torque wrench was 13 inches. The extender was 2 inches. And you calculate and you get 135, 11 foot-pounds, 15 Newton meters. Now notice it rounded it up. With my torque wrench, I can go decimal points. So I can do a 35.2 to get a more accurate reading. So that is an option. The one I like the best is this Carpi Tools torque wrench reading calculator. It brings me to this site. Now I will put a link to this site right here because I like this calculator the best. Now, if you just go to carpitools.com, you won't be able to find it. Type in their search bar, torque adapter calculator, and you enter that, then it's just going to take you to their adapters. It's not actually going to take you to the actual calculator thing. So I wish they had a little calculator thing up here. You know, I looked through all of this. I wish that I had it maybe here, calculator. I looked through it all. I couldn't find it. Maybe you can find it. I could not. I went through all of this, even the Carpi Originals and Official Gear. So I will put this link, which is a long link. I'll put it in the description page. Here's why I like this. Actual torque that you need. Okay, that's what I want to know. I like how it's worded. 156. Now, is that in foot-pounds or inch pounds? That's inch pounds. Length of your torque wrench. That's 13. Okay, is it in inches or is it in meters? It's in inches. Length of the adapter is a 2-inch adapter. Then you can hit calculate, and it says, look, set your torque wrench to 135.2 inch pounds. to get a 156 inch-pounds. The way this works in my head, I like this the best. And then if you scroll down, it gives you the formula, which is kind of much like mine, just formulated a little different. So you'll take the length of the wrench, then divide that by the length of the wrench plus the adapter, and then you'll times that. There should be a little times here to help you. You'll times that by the torque applied right here, what we want out of the end. Remember, there at my bolt was the torque applied. So that would be 156 there, 13 there, 13 there, and 2 there. And then equals TS, which is torque wrench setting. So it's the very same formula that I use, and I like how it's laid out here. Now remember, I did that calculation on a 13-inch long torque wrench on my 3/8. I mentioned that I got a 1/4 inch that is an inch smaller or an inch shorter, 12-inch long. Now, does that change my calculations? Does it change what I need to set my wrench to? So let's set the length of the torque wrench to 12 inches for the 1/4 inch wrench. And when I hit calculate, watch what happens to this final value. So the length of my torque wrench now, what if I had a little short 1/4 inch torque wrench? So say it's a 6-inch wrench. Well then, my value actually goes down. So I would set this at 117 inch-pounds to get the 156 inch-pounds. Say I had a big, long torque wrench. Say it was 20 inches long. What would that do? Well, then I would bring my torque wrench up to 141.8 inch-pounds. Now, say I go back and I've got my 13 that we've been working with. I hit calculate 135.20. So when I go to a shorter wrench, my torque actually goes down. Watch how as my wrench shortens, my torque that I set it to gets smaller. Why? I don't know. You tell me. Somebody explain that to me. Maybe because there's a shorter distance, but then if I'm going shorter here, wouldn't it be there too? Don't know. Now, what if I go back to our 13 that we've been using? I set it to that. What if I've got a long adapter? What if I've got a 6-inch adapter for some reason I might need that? What does that do? Well, then that drops the torque that I set it to even more. So the shorter the torque wrench, the spec will go down. The longer the adapter, the spec will go down even more. So if we had a 6-inch adapter and a 6-inch torque wrench, then that goes all the way down to 78 inch-pounds to get the 156. So these formulas are very important for your torque wrench. And you can even, most come in cases like mine do, you can even take a Sharpie or a paint pen when you open up the case and just write how long your torque wrench is. And that'll help you when you're calculating things. You can remember, you don't have to measure your torque wrench every time. So I will put a link to this website. Again, I'm not affiliated with them, never even heard of them until I went to look for the calculator to see if there was an online option for putting in this instead of formulating it and doing it yourself. But there is. There's several of them, and I've showed you those. Here's one from Norbar. Never been here before. Let's go here and see how this looks. As you can see, their calculations are kind of all the same. Well, where do you put it in at? Okay, this says they have an app for the iPhone and the Android. But you can't actually do it on the site. So let's try this out. So there's an iPhone app and an Android app. Let me download the iPhone app and we'll do it on my phone and we'll see how that is. If it's on the phone, that's a lot more accessible if you're out, wrenching somewhere instead of going and to your computer and having to pull it up. That'd be nice. So let me click this. I'll download it on my phone, probably my iPad. That might be easier to view. So when you click the little iPhone thing on the website, this is what it takes you to here. And I'm downloading this now on my iPad, and then I'll show you what it looks like on my iPad. Okay, so here it is on my iPad. I'm trying to get the light glare out. English will continue. Okay, so it's kind of set up the same. This has a crow's foot on it, but it should be the same. Okay, so the length 1, was 13 inches. Length 2, so it's going to have you go ahead and add that extension with the wrench. So that would be 15 for us. The extension was 2 inches. And the desired torque, okay, is 156 inch-pounds. That's our top. We'll click done and then set wrench to 135.2, which was exactly what ours was as well, and the website as well. So if you want an app on your phone for that, this seems to work fine. You can even click for updates and things like that. Pretty neat. So I'm glad that they offer an app for this. So I hope that helped explain dog bone torque adapters, when they use them, how to use them, how to calculate it. So it is absolutely fine doing it straight as long as you calculate for it. Now, if you have a torque spec that doesn't have any tolerances, so say it doesn't go from 120 to 156. Say the torque spec is 135. That's it. Then you are going to have to calculate how you want this. If you have to calculate for a dog bone, I always do it up and down, calculate for that, then I know I've got the right torque. I would not try to calculate with it at this angle and just assume that, hey, the torque spec's fine because I've got it at a right angle. Remember that. Okay, look at that. So when I put this on here and I go to turn, look how much I'm getting before I actually turn. So you're going to get about probably a 5% angle, a 5-degree angle on that, which is going to skew your readings. So I would always recommend going to the top, putting in your calculation, your formula, finding out what setting you need, then putting it on there. So that's why you see me using these all different kinds of angles. The way that I do it, I think, works good for me because I don't have to worry about resetting this a million times. I can just put it on here, and anywhere from here to here, I'm fine. I'm within my specs. And if you got cases like me, that kind of gives you a little torque conversion thing. But take your sticky note with your formula on it, stick it right to there or write it on here, and then you've always got it. Put it in all of your digital torque wrench cases. Pretty cool. Now that's all I know about it. You might know a whole lot more than me. I might be totally wrong on something. You might have an even easier formula. You might have some suggestions and tips. I'm always open to learning. I think that most of our subscribers are folks who love to learn. You might not ever get into a situation where you need a dog bone, but you like knowing and having the knowledge. I love learning, even if it's something I'm pretty sure I might not ever need or use. I've got that knowledge. I just like learning, and I know that you probably do too. So thank you so much for hanging out in the shop with me this week as we looked at dog bone torque adapters. Now, I know we didn't do any wrenching. Well, we spun the dog bone around. But it was something that come up so often in the comments. Anytime I would use a dog bone and they'd see it sticking straight out, they would, oh, no, hey, that's wrong. But I've learned over time how to do it my formula way, and I don't have to reset it a bunch of times and change the specs. And in doing that, I've never, knock on wood, I've never had an issue with it, and it's always been fine and worked very good for me. So I hope that's helped you out as well. But let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you're working on. Now, some things we got coming up. we got to get the 10K bike ready. We're going to keep doing the wiring on that. Then the Liberty stuff should be ready. We got to get it back together and decide what we're going to do with that. And then we're going to build a budget chopper. What is the cheapest chopper we can build? We've already got the motor, we've already got a roller frame, and we're going to build it as cheap as possible. Meaning we're going to make a lot of things with it from the hardware store, the hard store. On the cheap. Might be some angle iron and chicken wire on a chopper, but hey, it is what it is. Thank you so much to all of our subscribers, members, all of you that are just watching. It really helps my channel. The way you comment, the way you share, the thumbs up on the videos. Thank you so, so much. And tell your mama now, I said hi.